introduce our next speaker, and you can read about him. Sort of the official biography is in our book. I want to share a quick personal anecdote that makes me very excited to present to you Bruce Mau. Bruce is the chairman and CEO of Bruce Mau Design, which has studios in Chicago and Toronto. But the reason I'm excited to have him here relates to a personal story. A few years ago, a friend of mine, Nancy McGraw at the Aspen Institute, invited me to a small gathering of designers and management educators to really look at the theme we're looking at today. How can we use design thinking, design attitude, a design mindset, in this case at that meeting around educating tomorrow's leaders to think and act sustainably. And she, through the process of getting us prepared for this meeting, she was so excited to announce that it was going to be held in Chicago. And then when we got there, she was very eager all day to tell us about this special evening we were going to have. The surprise for me, we went to the Museum of Modern Art in Chicago to see an exhibit called Massive Change. And there we were introduced to Bruce, who personally guided us through several of the rooms that composed the exhibit. Now, the Massive Change is a title of a project. It's also a title of a wonderful book. The book just represents one way of disseminating this project. Bruce, his associates, and the Institute Without Boundaries spent several years analyzing and trying to understand the trajectory of technological innovation historically. No small task. The result is, there's many ways to describe it, and like any museum, when you go, you have your own interpretation. To me, the result was what I would call an appreciative inquiry of technological innovation. They identified 11 or 12 different thematic areas they called ecologies, and in each one of those, they tracked the history of innovation and then made propositions about the future. And like our speaker last night, Gunther, it's an example of thinking positively as the number one step. Their propositions are not only hopeful, but they're data-based, that we will be able to eradicate poverty, eliminate waste, etc. As I walked through this exhibit with Bruce and the group that I was in, I think we went into the transportation or mobility ecology, and there were interesting things in there, even a totally biodegradable car. But it's when I got to the room, and I can't even remember which ecology it was, I saw this machine that was about this high, rectangular, had a 4-inch tube out one end that you stick in raw sewage, and a spigot on the other end for drinking water. And that's when something hit me that evening, and I just looked at it, and it's, so if the answer's there, why isn't it happening? Where does this stop? I mean, technologically, we can solve it. And then the byline of his book came to life for me. This is called Massive Change. The byline is, now that we can do anything, what will we do? And each speaker we've heard so far has, in their own way, talked about the choice that we shoulder, the choice that we collectively shoulder now in these times. It's not a choice of how so much, I believe, it's a choice of what will we do? And that's why I was so excited to have Bruce come and share with you the work that he's doing. Please welcome Bruce Mau.
Thank you. Are slides working here? So it actually is a super exciting moment to be here because I want to go through a project that we're working on that is in some ways the kind of next significant project after massive change. And it's a kind of perfect timing because the thing is actually just kind of taking off the runway. And I'm going to talk about sort of what we're trying to do there. And you'll see that, in fact, I'm hoping that today in this group we will find some partners to join us in this effort. We were invited to the city of Denver for the DNC as part of a program called Dialogue City. And we proposed that we would make a project on a sustainable America. What would it mean to create a sustainable America? And I have to say that when I first said those words, they kind of floated out and then kind of crashed to the floor immediately and broke into a million shards because it seemed so crazy to say it out loud. That, you know, the idea that somehow 5% of the world's population wouldn't consume 26% of the world's resources just seems at this moment preposterous. But we had a wonderful event there. It was an extraordinary experience to be there with, for Obama, working with the mayor. And that led to a bigger discussion. Mayor John Hickenlooper was responsible for bringing the DNC to Denver, and he started a discussion with us about a new kind of event that might be produced at the level of the city. That, could you imagine a new kind of cultural event that was really citywide, that would signal this kind of energy that we experienced at the DNC? We have a design practice, as was mentioned, and it really is a focus on innovation, of course, because that's fundamentally what design is. Really looking at existing situations and trying to understand what is the best possible thing we can do. And we've developed that iterative practice over almost 25 years now, and really have kind of taken the methodology of design and expanded it quite dramatically. We don't think of design in the way that most people do, and part of that process was really driven by this project that was just mentioned, Massive Change. And the back cover in some ways says it best. Massive Change is not about the world of design, it's about the design of the world. It started as a question from the Vancouver Art Gallery to produce an answer to the question, what is the future of design? And we spent about 20 years of research trying to understand how is our capacity to solve problems evolving, and where is design going? And there were several important ideas that were developed in that process. First of all, we met a few hundred of the world's great innovators working today. So we went out to study their work, to meet them, to understand what they do and how they do it. And that experience radically changed our perspective, because we saw what was actually happening that is so optimistic and so positive that if you could see it, and you'll see it's a theme in this work. If you could see it, it would really blow your mind what is actually happening. So we did that work, and there are sort of three important ideas in that. One is that the new design is not singular. Right? It's not about a singular authorship in the way that we normally think of design. It's actually about this new kind of collective capacity and our collective ability to solve problems. It's not about power. So if you think about the design of the world, if you think it's singular, the first thing you think, well, that's just about control and power. It's actually about responsibility, to say, if we have these capacities, therefore we must exercise them responsibly. And thirdly, it's not visual. It's no longer so much about the visual. If you said, what is the design of this cup? The shape of the cup is not the design. The real design is, how does this matter and energy intersect with intelligence, provide a certain utility and delight, and then what happens when that's over? How does that material get back to the starting point? If you saw William McDonough, you'll know what I mean. So one of the people that we met during that process was a man named E.O. Wilson, extraordinary life scientist, and he said something really powerful. He said, if we just took the American way of life and rolled it out to 6 billion people, we would need 4 additional planet Earths to do it. The physical matter, the stone, the metal, the oil, the wood, we would need the physical matter of 4 additional planet Earth to do that. And at first glance, you think, well, that's the worst news that I've heard this afternoon. But in some ways, it's the best because it takes it off the table as an option. We're not going to do that. People around the world are looking to improve their lot, but they will not replicate what we do. We will not replicate what we do. In the future, even Americans won't live like Americans. One of the other people that we met was a man named Stewart Brand, and he gave us an idea that really changed our life in a way. He said that when people see that things are bad and getting worse, they behave selfishly. They do what is natural, is they defend themselves, and they take what they can get while they can still get it. So if we're constantly telling them that things are bad and getting worse and showing them only that, it's no wonder they do exactly what we don't want them to do, which is to hoard and become defensive and not collaborative and not collective and not connected. And in fact, what people do when they see that we're investing in the community, they also want to be part of that. So it became clear to us that it was a critical idea that we actually demonstrate these new possibilities in a very powerful, visual, communicative way. And that led us to a whole series of projects. Just to give you a sense, one of the things we talked about in Denver was that during the last 8 years, the first 8 years of this century, the dominant image that we saw in the world of America was this. This is the New York Times on one day. We have Abu Ghraib, Katrina, and disaster in Iraq. That was, for 8 years, the kind of dominant image that we experienced, when in fact, during that time, the number of charitable organizations in the United States doubled. During those same 8 years, we launched Wikipedia and offered free access to global knowledge in 264 languages. We launched the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for Health and Education, and their friend Warren Buffett put an additional $30 billion into that effort. We did projects like one laptop per child and offered access to this global knowledge base that was being developed. And people like Leonardo DiCaprio did films like The 11th Hour, which you should all see because I'm in it. And it's an absolutely wonderful film, especially certain parts of it that feature me. But that's what was actually going on. But that image was not what we thought we were doing. We thought we were doing the front page of the New York Times. The way that I describe it is that if you publish a newspaper called Reality, it would be a mile thick, and the first quarter inch is the New York Times, and it scares the hell out of you. The rest of the mile is massive change. The rest of the mile is what's going on here today. It's businesses, organizations, institutions, and governments coordinating and collaborating on collective action to address the challenges that we face. So this is the question that the mayor of Denver asked me. He said, look, we want to do a citywide event in 2010 that's really, that really kind of captures this new energy. We want it to happen every 2 years, but there are 200 biennials in the world today. Typically, they're about art. Could we not think of something, some way of doing it in a new way? And I thought it was an absolutely wonderful question. And I said, look, we can't answer that question outside of this context. This context shows population, so the red line is population. All the other lines are environmental impact and resource consumption from 1750 to today. So this is what's going on. And to imagine that you could have a citywide cultural event that was about thinking that wasn't conscious of this seemed irrational. And I said, look, if we did something about this, there's a movement going on. There's something happening here that is really compelling, that could be super exciting as a way of working. So we developed this concept, In Good We Trust, Art, Ideas, and Action 2010, the Denver Biennial of the Americas. So in the summer of 2010, we will mount a 7-week project around this. And essentially what we realized a few days ago is that it's already started. It's going to come to fruition in 2010, but we've actually kind of started this movement. The way that we designed it and organized it was around 7 themes. So we said there are 7 big issues that we're all engaged with right now. We're going to design 7 experiences that will change the way that you see the world, activated by 7 weeks of events. So across a 7-week period, we will feature all 7 for 7 weeks, but each week we will go in depth in one of those. And we talked about the idea of launching 7 possibilities for the 21st century, to find people who were looking to do something that they've been struggling to do, that they're committed to, that they know would be a major contribution to this world. And if they had several 100,000 people working with them, they could really make a difference. And if we could bring the kind of spotlight on those people, we could really make a difference. So we're currently looking for those 7 possibility projects to launch from Denver. One of the things that we do in our work on almost everything we do is we try to understand what the real objective is, not what the project is, but what's a real accomplishment that we're working on. Because what we see is that often we have that at the beginning, and all of a sudden we're doing an exhibition, then the exhibition becomes the objective, and then a series of tasks to the exhibition, and then those become and you've completely lost what you're actually trying to change in the world. So we said, look, we want to inspire people to higher possibility. We don't want an audience in a passive way that goes to see a show and then says, cool, and then goes home. If that happens, it's a disaster. We said this is about creating platforms for participation. We want people to get to Denver, virtually or physically, and change the way that we live. Because just as Mr. Sachs said earlier, that's what we're going to do. That's what we are doing. And we need to open that up as much as possible to full participation. So we imagine that everyone who is part of Denver is actually part of the project, not a separate audience. We structured around this idea, the idea of proof and possibility. Going back to Stewart Brand's idea, if people don't understand that this is happening, they're certain that it isn't. So we want to show you in each area 50 people who are changing this world. In each of the 7 themes, we'll introduce you to 50 organizations, groups, individuals who are transforming the way that you will live, and introduce you to the possibility of participation in making one of those things happen yourself. So this is the structure that we're using, this notion of proof and possibility, and for us it's been a critical idea. So we're looking for people who know who are doing or know of projects in proof, and of course we're looking for a few number of people in possibility. These are the 7 themes that we're working on, and one of the people that we worked with a lot on massive change was Jeanne Lerner. And Jeanne Lerner said, these are problems that are not solved in isolation. These are holistic problems. And this is where the new design is going, to this sustainable, holistic thinking. So we said, look, what we want to do is actually attack these 7 themes, knowing that we can focus in on them, but also connect them across the other themes. One of the questions is, how will you do this? And this is really a kind of separate presentation, but we've developed a design methodology that comes out of massive change. What happened in our experience with massive change is that we understood through the institution that we built to do that, called the Institute Without Boundaries, that collectively we could do things that were way beyond what is the norm. So with 14 students, we produced massive change. And for me, one of the most poignant moments was at the end, on opening night, I took the president of the university around the exhibition. At the end of it, she turned to me and said, "Wow, last year our students produced massive change. I wonder what other students did." And for me, it was really kind of, awakening moment where I realized, I never thought of it that way, but that's actually what happened. We did massive change with 14 students over 2 years. So what we're doing with the Centers for Massive Change is to realize, in fact, doing it in that kind of singular way was wonderful, and it was a great experience. But it actually doesn't meet the needs that we have. We have a terrible urgency to produce a new way of thinking in a big scale. So we're working on building out a network of Centers for Massive Change in North America and, in fact, around the world. So this is the effect that we're having at this point. When we talk to people about, would you be interested in participating, this has been the response. And I want to go through some of the people that we're inviting to be part of this, because that makes it a lot more concrete. Amory Lovins and the Rocky Mountain Institute, they're Colorado-based, so they're kind of local to Denver. And they are absolutely awesome. They could be working in any one of those 7 themes. In fact, they're working in all of them. He's quite famous if you don't know him. He started this Rocky Mountain Institute in Snowmass, and he grows bananas in his house that he claims is so energy efficient it is heated by the heat of his dog. So here he is eating one of his bananas, which he revels in. He's also quite funny. He's been involved in many projects that are about new ways of thinking about how we do these things. And he comes from an engineering perspective, so he's really about sort of how do we actually design and manage these things. In fact, this is one of their most recent projects that they just signed on to redesign the Empire State Building to make it energy efficient and sustainable. And that's the kind of thing that is actually going on. This is a group of people out of Guatemala who several years ago started a project called Guatemala. They explained that they had 36 years of civil war, 36 years of what they call the culture of death, and that they had to build a new culture, a sustainable culture, the culture of life. And they explained that when their citizens thought about the future, what they saw was 3 dominant images: violence, poverty, and corruption. Could we imagine a new image of the future that was a positive, sustainable image? And they did this project called Guatemala. So this is the exhibition that they did in the center of Guatemala City. They're bringing this installation to Denver and doing the kind of second phase of this project as one of the possibility projects, connecting to almost 1 million Guatemalans in Los Angeles, 300,000 in Chicago, and several 100,000 members that they have in Guatemala itself. They're currently working with 2,600 leaders in Guatemala, and the strategy that we developed together was basically based on that Stewart Brand idea that if people don't see what's going on, they think nothing's happening or worse. So this is part of that project they launched, and it was absolutely wonderful. We had 12 of them up to the studio in Chicago a few days ago. A minister of education, a finance minister, the head of one of the Latin American banks, and a former ambassador to the United States, who are all part of this Guatemala group. And you can see the event that took place. When you went through that exhibition and got into the kind of, at the end of it, you went into a circular space, and around that circular space you saw portraits, these big scale portraits, of 180 leaders who were changing Guatemala. And that's actually what's going on. And then, of course, they did a 10-day forum on the culture of life and the 9 foundations that they need to build that culture of life. Glenn Kano is an artist who we're also working with on Denver. He he's in some ways the kind of new artist that we are looking for. When we met him, he's working on the Oprah Winfrey network. When we met him, he explained that he had built a website, an online platform that was a new technology that was kind of super simple technology for kids to build drag and drop media sites. So kids could go online, assemble projects using existing assets online, and very, very simply launch a new project. And we said, whoa, and it got wiped out in the financial crisis. And we said, look, could you imagine bringing that back to life for Denver? Because that's exactly what we need to do. We want to show, all of these projects around the Americas and, in fact, the world that are taking on these big challenges. And 24 hours later, he built this site in Good We Trust Denver 2010. And you can see the kind of proof and possibility concept. And the whole idea is to allow kids to put, and not only kids, but people all over the world, to put their projects online and to be voted up into Denver. To be for other people to say, you know what, this is an absolutely wonderful thing that must happen in Denver. These are two people, two young people. They were 17 and 19. And this really is the new world that's emerging. They were 17 and 19. They started a website called Taking It Global. And it's absolutely wonderful. It's basically a kind of online platform for kids who want to do massive change, who are doing it already and want to share it with other people around the world. They have 225,000 members and 4.5 million unique users on their site. And we approached them and said, look, we'd like to feature you and really collaborate and be partners with you on advancing and accelerating this change. Could we, would you be interested in bringing your membership to Denver? And they said, absolutely, that's exactly what our membership is interested in. And so if you take something like what Glenn Kano is doing, and you connect it with Taking It Global, and you connect that with Amory Lovins, you start to understand what the possibilities are, because suddenly you have hundreds of thousands of people working towards a common ambition. Lala is the head of a South-South dialogue and a project called Enthusiasmo in Brazil, and we're on our way to Brazil in a few days to take this to the next stage with people across Brazil, including Jamie Lerner. And one of the things that is happening is that when I go there, Taking It Global is bringing all of the Taking It Global members together for a workshop and a presentation on the Denver Biennial to kind of take it to the next step. So this is the kind of people that we're looking for. What we see is that the challenges that we face don't fit into the classical categories of business and science and art. We need to develop new kinds of entrepreneurial, spirited methods, and that's exactly what we're doing with the Center for Massive Change. One of the highlighted word there is art scientist. The idea that we can bring art and science back together, and these two cultures that really kind of went to different places for the last 50 or 100 years. If you think about where in our culture those come back together, it's in design. Everything we do has to be art in some way. It has to be artful. It has to be compelling, sexy, attractive, engaging. That's all the kind of emotional side, the aesthetics. But everything we do is also built on a fundamental foundation of the scientific project. Nothing we do is not also technical. So design is really the place in our culture where those two things come back together, and we're really looking for that kind of a character and committed to actually educating and producing that kind of a character in the Centers for Massive Change. So as an experience, we've kind of done a very early sketch. This is not definitive by any means, but it starts to kind of say, look, here's what we're going to do. we're looking at building a network of collaborators across the continents because we're going to have absolutely extraordinary events like this one happening for 7 weeks in Denver. And so we're building partnerships with people like TakeNet Global and Guatemala and others in other countries to take these ideas into those populations without those people having to get on an airplane to Denver, so that the events that happen in Denver are also connected to students and innovators across the Americas. Part of what we do, as was mentioned in Massive Change, we make these things, which are often systematic and in some ways invisible, we make them physical and visible and understandable so that people can embrace these new ideas. So part of it is actually communicating these new frameworks. The project itself is a citywide celebration, and we have, I'm not sure what the number is now, by now it's maybe 20 or 30 major institutional partners in Denver who are all developing programming around this new thematic, which is super exciting. And of course we have a absolute commitment from the mayor, Mayor Hickenlooper, which really makes a huge difference to make something like this happen. One of the things that we're looking at is setting up the Denver Prize, that we will acknowledge this accomplishment, because we know that when we do, that alone stimulates people to get across that threshold into action. And one of the, as I mentioned, we have partners all across the city. So this is the Museum of Science and Nature, and they're working on their own, like the zoo and the botanical gardens and all the other cultural institutions. They're working on their own institutional program that will happen at the same time, really taking advantage of this extraordinary confluence of people and ideas. And finally, what we really mean by action is fun. We're building it so that it's really an extraordinary spectacle and celebration in Denver. I was talking to a company a few days ago about participating in our project, and as I described it, this man said, Bruce, what you really want to do is it sounds like the Woodstock for the 21st century. I said, absolutely. We could also get some of those old guys there. But that is the concept. The idea that there is a collective movement happening, and it's critically important that we actually visualize it, and we make it and we package it in a way that circulates in the media, that we actually put things into that system other than violence, poverty, and corruption. So recently we had a dinner at, one of the people in Denver had a lovely dinner for the mayor and myself and a group of people. And at every place setting there was this beautiful quotation from Goethe. And it was much longer than this, but it was essentially, it was about this idea that when you commit to action, suddenly providence moves with you. That when you decide to make something happen, suddenly all sorts of doors open that you never could have imagined, and things become important, and things become possible that couldn't have happened before. So for me, this is a kind of critical idea. I mean, we use this in everything that we do. So we're looking for partners. We're looking for projects that we can feature. If you're interested in being part of this, you can email this email. I'll leave it up for a moment. We have a website up called ingoodwetrust2010.com. And we're looking for people who want to be part of this, or if you know of someone who ought to be part of it, so that we really get what we need for this project. I also have a little card that I'm happy to give to you that basically has the whole project in just about 30 words, which is quite a compression trick. So that's what we're up to, and I'm going to end with this video that that kind of outlines our ambition. Thank you. Thank you.
Bruce, thank you very, very much for that. I think for me personally, it was one of the most exciting things when Bruce confirmed his participation in the Global Forum. So thank you for being here. All right. Okay, so you are all probably wondering where to go next. So I'm going to help you out with that. Can I have my slides? Hi, can I have my slides, please? Thank you. Yep. All right. Okay, so if you have checked at the registration desk, you should find the insert into the agenda for all the changes. So, all right, thank you. And here is also all the locations of the workshops. So I'm going to run through them quickly, and we'll be displaying the locations of the workshops up here as well. Now, there are workshops happening in this building and the mezzanine floor. Those are the ones that are happening in Veale. And then the other workshops are happening when you exit through the main doors at the registration desk, and you just continue down the pathway. There will be people pointing in the right directions, and there'll be signs up as well. So you should be able to find your way. Now, I'm going to run through the workshops really quickly, and then you can be on your way. The first workshop is the Designing Networks for Sustainability. It's being presented by one of our local sustainability networks. There's a case study on how networks and collaboration has helped organizations be more sustainable, and it's also being moderated by George Poor, who is one of the top experts in this field in the world. The next one is Green Blue. Jason Pearson, who's the CEO of Green Blue, will be there, together with representatives from Procter & Gamble, from Dow Chemical, and from Harvey Global Solutions, and explaining a little bit more about how metrics in the sustainability field can actually increase the innovation that happens. And connecting to that innovation in organizations and systems, Nadia will be from the Bled School of Management, will be explaining a process for redesigning your organization to create a space that is more innovative. Going beyond fuel efficiency and emission standards is a whole new concept for personal mobility, and that is the workshops that's being presented by John and David from the Ford Motor Company. That's happening in North 206. The representatives and actually the head of the Secretariat for the Principles for Responsible Management Education, or PRIME for short, is here with us at the conference, Manuel Escudero, and they will be presenting a workshop on what we need to do to redesign management education now. I think there's never been a more urgent time for this. And they will also be here in the Veale Center multi-purpose room on the mezzanine level, the room number 2. There's also a survey that they would like you to fill out. It's at the bookstore and the information sharing desk. So throughout the conference, if you can pick that up and just fill out your thoughts on what should happen in management education, and you can just hand that in at the registration desk, and they will take your perspectives into account. Tracy Fenton from World Blue will be presenting some ideas on freedom-centered organizations and how, using design thinking, you can create an organization that is much more innovative and companies that foster innovation in a place for people to really grow and to reach their highest potential. Alain Gauthier will be in North 213, and he looks at a survey of generative leadership development programs. So, and using that as a conversation starter of how these leadership development programs can be used in mainstream management education. Innovations in healthcare. The healthcare industry is a giant sector these days, and Peter Whitehouse from Case Western Reserve University will be moderating this. And we look at 2 case studies, new ways of collaboration to produce products that can benefit the poorest of the poor in the healthcare sector, and also looking at optimal healing environments. So these are new ideas that are coming up in the field of healthcare. The next session will take 2 case studies, one from Patagonia and one from Walmart, looking at how a company can, through being a better corporate citizen, can actually move ahead and transform the entire industry. So that will be happening in Sears 350. Then the next session is in Sears 356, and that is together with 2 academics from the Queensland University of Technology, and also with Ashwini Narayan from eBay's Microplace. And we look at innovative ways for raising capital through microfinance, and also what are the conditions that are needed for these micro enterprises to thrive. In OLIM 313, we will have a few case studies of UN Global Compact signatories. You know, our conference is co-convened with the UN Global Compact, and we look at how organizations are actually integrating the 10 principles of the Global Compact into their businesses as a source of competitive advantage. And in Sears 372, we'll look at a few case studies of how action learning in extremely rapidly transforming environments and what the results of that is for business being an agent of world benefit. We're looking at what is businesses doing in countries such as Lebanon, as Afghanistan, and China. In White 324, you will have Glenn Taylor, Gregory Veale from York University, and they're looking at how business schools are actually incorporating some of these design thinking principles into their education. And in Series 374, we'll have Phil Mervis, Mary Jo Hatch, Frank Barrett, and Malcolm McIntosh, and they are going to be presenting a series of papers that look at strategic change for a more sustainable organization and more sustainable industries. So, and very briefly, if we can just go to the next slide. There you go, and that is the sessions that you're interested in, the exact rooms where they are, and we would kindly request you to be back here in this room. We're going to start again right here at 4 o'clock. So there you have it. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you back here again at 4. Can we have that slide again, please? Those of you that were at the welcome reception last night would have heard Gunther Pauli speak. And Gunther Pauli will be hosting a session in the Veale multipurpose room number 1. So at the mezzanine level, you will be able to meet with Gunther and have more conversations about his work. So thank you.